Oh, hi guys. David Bott here from Outside Our Bubble, doing something we all do at RV parks, Wi-Fi. We rely on our computers every day probably to look up information on our next stop or even check the stocks online or the news or what have you. But we all have seemed to come to rely on it. So I want to talk to you quickly today about Wi-Fi and how it's done in an RV and different ways you can do it, I should say. And we'll see if this kind of helps out some of you. Now I'm winging this video as I normally do, so I'm trying not to do any cuts here or anything, so it's a straight take, so forgive me. In any case, Wi-Fi in a park is very interesting to say the least. There are all different types of Wi-Fi that you find when you come into an RV park. Resorts usually have great service, little mom and pop places usually don't, but they all seem to have one thing in common. Unless you're near a good access point, you're not going to get good access. However, even if you do have an access point next to you, that doesn't mean you're going to have good internet access. You may have good access to their network, but you might not have good access going in and out of the park because they don't have enough bandwidth to support the park. So that's something you'll never be able to get around unless the park itself has adequate amount of bandwidth coming in and out of the park to support the number of users online. So with that said, the most critical thing you have to remember about Wi-Fi is that while the Wi-Fi in the park may be using some very powerful and large antennas, you are using a very small antenna compared to what they're using. Now what I mean by that is in your notebook or in your iPad or in your phone or a tablet or what have you, the antenna and the output power of that antenna is nowhere close to the output power that the park is going to be using. It takes two to have a conversation. What I mean by that is that radio that you might see that you're parked right down the road from might be talking to you using a megaphone. So it's very loud, in other words. You, on the other hand, are transmitting back and you're kind of talking like this, and it can hardly hear you. So the difference is the output power. It takes two to have a conversation. Kind of like being around in a crowded room, somebody talking to you from the other side of the room using a megaphone, you're on the other side whispering to that person, they're not going to hear you. And by the way, this is all over all the other people in the room that are talking, aka noise in the air, other Wi-Fi devices, everything else going on that might cause interference. So it takes two to have a conversation. So it's not always the Wi-Fi, in the park that's bad. It could be you just don't have the transmit power to get there, and at that particular case, then something else needs to be added to the picture. In this case, what we use is a Wi-Fi Rogue Wave. A Wi-Fi Rogue Wave is a product name. You probably never have heard of it. And it's a device that we use on top of our motor coach. And what that does is it brings in the signal into the coach, the outside Wi-Fi signal, but it uses a very powerful antenna. It's a 8.5 to 9 dB outdoor antenna that's connected directly to a radio, and that comes in and feeds either your notebook directly or a Wi-Fi router that's inside of your motorhome. The advantage of this is it gives you a lot of access to a lot of different access points around the park, or actually outside the park for that matter. Yeah, I've been known to connect to services such as McDonald's from a half-mile away because the park's Wi-Fi's been bad. Now, I always made sure I went to McDonald's and spent my money there also, so I didn't feel so bad afterwards. In any case, I'm going to show you a little quick here about the Wi-Fi Rogue Wave and what it can actually do for you. So I'm going to cut over to my computer desktop screen here. I'm going to bring up and show you my Wi-Fi. This is from my notebook, and as you can see, this is all I can see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 devices. So this is 7 hotspots I can see, 2 of which are my own, actually 3. I'm going to switch over to Wi-Fi Rogue Wave, and this is the interface you would use to connect to other hotspots. You do a network scan, it brings up the page, and now look how many I can see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I can see 2 times the amount. And look at this, Welcome Center. I can't even see that in my list. So you can see it's really boosting the power of what you can receive. And also what's good to note is you can do favorites. So you can actually set your favorites in there so it'll automatically connect to those if it's on. So I have my phone and my wife's phone in there as a favorite. Also, in regards to Wi-Fi and using your hotspot, you might want to use something called a Wilson Sleek. A Wilson Sleek is nothing more than an external booster that allows you to pull in the signal from outside your coach much stronger than you would just using your hotspot alone. It's a cradle that has an antenna that you slide your hotspot or your cell phone in to pull in better cell service and thus better data. So therefore, you can be in an area that you only get 3G service normally, you slide it in, you get 4G possibly. That's what's happening right here at this park with us right now. So there's pros and cons to doing different things. The Wi-Fi Rogue allows you to bring in the signal from a long distance away, but it also allows you to do something else. We've all received something like this one time or another when we come into an RV park. This allows you to log in to their Wi-Fi. It gives you a username and a password you have to use. Now, what that means is, when I was to sit down at this computer and I connect to their access point, I have to put in the username and password. They log what they call the MAC address of my computer. So that device is the only device that can use that login. So where the Wi-Fi Rogue comes in with this is, if you connect to their access point via Wi-Fi Rogue, open up your web browser on your device, when you put in the username and password, it records the MAC address of the Wi-Fi Rogue. Now the Rogue is then connected to your internal Wi-Fi router, and all your devices are talking to your router, which then goes out the Rogue to talk to the park. The park only sees one device. So you can have your wife's computer, your tablet, all on with one username and password because you're using an external device. So that's another plus. Now let me talk about open networks in an RV park. That doesn't necessarily mean you're not encrypted if you're using your bank, because you are. Ever notice the HTTPS at the end of a URL or at the beginning of a URL? That stands for secure, as in secure socket layer. That means from your computer to the bank's computer and back is encrypted. So even if you're using an open Wi-Fi network that doesn't require you to have a SSID password to get into it, you're still encrypted. So don't worry about using Gmail, worry about using Facebook, or don't worry about using your bank as long as it has HTTPS, because then you are secure. All that password on the Wi-Fi does is it encrypts the data between your computer and the access point. That's it. It's a password that you have to get on their network. It doesn't do anything else but protect other people who don't have the password from getting on their network. That's why it's important when you have your own Wi-Fi inside your coach to make sure it's password protected, because you don't want people getting on your network. So that's a little thing about open networks and RV parks, and because I hear that all the time, oh, I don't do my banking because it's not secure. It's secure as long as you have HTTPS. In any case, I'm going to get back to what I was doing here. I just hope some of this helps. I have this all documented on our website, so if you just go to outsideurbubble.com and you do search for Wi-Fi, you'll probably find it there. And I have it all written up, complete with links to the Rogue and other devices you may need. I'm David Bott from Outside Our Bubble. It's been great seeing you, and hey, we'll see you online if you can get there.